You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Corey Naito, David Neese. I got it right. Look at that. Corey, did I get it right?
You did.
That has to be my thing. I got to get a shirt for that. That says I put your last names, so don't tell me yours. But anyways, football season around the corner. Before we get to that, I do want to ask, how are you guys feeling?
Feeling good.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there was any surprises with the cuts today. We're going to get into it. Hard to believe, but we're less than 10 days from that highly anticipated opener. You know, the three of us were talking about it before we just went on air here. You know, the season's here. There's very few exciting moments in Philadelphia sports than the opening day for the Eagles. So I'm excited.
How you feeling, David?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, then dropping the banner, opening day. We have things to talk about finally, besides like a lot of silly off-season things. Actually got the roster down. Next week, we'll be previewing a game. And I mean, it's just crazy. Yeah. The off-season's a lot shorter when you go all the way to the Super Bowl and have parades.
It really is. It feels like they just finished the season, which is so wild to think about. But I think what kind of adds to that is the fact that this team is acting like they didn't go to the Super Bowl. They're acting like this. They won, and it just means nothing. And I think that's going to be a huge difference maker for them this season compared to the 2018 Eagles, which was full of a lot of aging players. But let's get to the facts, right? 53-man roster. The initial 53-man roster was made official today. Howie Roseman did say we're not done yet. They're a work in progress, but a lot of surprising moves on this roster, in my opinion. How do you guys feeling about the Darius Cooper addition?
I love it. I mean, I think he showed that he belongs. I thought it was going to be between him and Ainias Smith, just because they had Smith doing some kick and punt returning in the preseason. But I mean, if you listen to Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni talk after the deadline today, they raved about this kid. I mean, this is a guy. I just pulled up his stats before we went on the air. He went to Tarleton State. For those who don't know, that's in the FCS in Stephenville, Texas. He had the second most receiving yards across NCAA Division I with over 1,400, which was second most in single season history for his school. Tied sixth in the country with 14 touchdowns. I mean, this is a guy who just has a knack for getting open and finding ways to catch the football. And I think he's a great 4 or 5 wide receiver. And from all accounts and the way Nick and Howie are talking, I think they're going to try and develop him into a potential future number 3 wideout, with Dotson being done after this year contract-wise. Mechie, you know, we don't really know what we're getting out of him, but I think it's a great story, and I think it's hard not to root for a guy like that.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I mean, like Corey just mentioned, they were just effusive with praise for him. They just absolutely loved him. The entire summer, he's just showed off doing everything. Like, they stressed the fact how he wins one-on-one, how he does the dirty work. And those are the ways that you get on a roster, you know, through when you're a UDFA or a 6th or 7th round pick. That's how you find your way on there, is by doing the dirty work, by, you know, succeeding and special teams and things like that. But yeah, I think the hopes are high that he'll be a wide receiver 3 or more. They see a lot of, I don't want to say like AJ Brown type things, not the size, but they see a lot of the same work ethic, the same, you know, style of play, the same desire to win one-on-ones. And, you know, that's pretty exciting, because they don't want a roster of wide receiver 4, 5, and 6. They're trying to get a whole bunch of 1-2s all down the line. And that's what they're striving for. And you can tell by the way they built the room with those 5 receivers.
Now, your key word right there is they, and I want to kind of highlight this. I love this new version of Howie Roseman, the guy who is very self-aware and is very understanding of when he makes mistakes and how to fix it, right? Like he cut Anaya Smith, which was a 5th round pick, and went ahead and got with Darius Cooper, who was more of an unproven talent. Back then, we're talking about if this is JJ Arcega-Whiteside, he's staying on the roster and nobody knows why. And we've seen how he hold on to players just to see if he could prove that he was right about these guys. But to see them going like, okay, this was a mistake. This isn't a guy. Let's move on from him. But this kid has a lot of talent, like you guys are saying. Like to see him be that self-aware and just be that. Sorry about the thunder. To be that self-aware and to be that selfless and putting the team actually first. I feel like it speaks volumes to where we are in the Eagles organization and in this day and age. Now, there was a ton of players that they moved on, right? I did mention Anaya Smith, which I feel like was a bit of a surprise because Johnny Wilson got injured, but they did trade for John Mechie. Defensively, is there any surprise cuts that you guys were like, okay, like, I thought they were going to hold on to this guy as opposed to, some guy that you knew was going to get cut? Because I feel like in the chat, we said a lot of it was predictable. But there's got to be 1 or 2 guys out there that really surprise you.
I could give way to David here first. I don't know if there was really anybody for me. I think maybe Andre Sam, just because from hearing from other people that were at camp, they kind of liked what Sam was bringing at the safety position, but they already have 3 safeties with Reed, Makuba, and McCollum. So keeping a 4th safety, I don't know how that would have worked roster wise. Other than that, I feel like it was kind of cut and dry of who they were gonna let go, at least in my opinion. I know Perry Nickerson had a decent preseason as well, but I don't think there was those guys really kind of jumped out to them, at least. David, I don't know if you disagree or agree.
I have one, and I'll probably need Brian to pronounce his last name. I'll go with Okoronkwo.
Is this the former Browns player?
That was a surprise of him staying. I will agree.
Yeah, that was probably the biggest surprise. I'm a little surprised that they allowed Antoine Powell-Ryland to be subjected to waivers. I thought they could have done what they did at not to jump the gun here, but what they did with the special teams players. They kind of did a little roster gymnastics there, because they can move on from the long snapper because he's a vested veteran. They can give a little handshake and a wink. We're going to bring you back tomorrow. We just got to get this initial 53, put somebody on IR, then we can bring you back. They can do things like that. I think that might be what they're doing with Patrick Johnson as well, which a lot of people thought he had earned a roster spot. But if Okoronkwo beat out, how that worked, and they're not as concerned with the special teams, because I gave the edge to a couple guys for that reason, because I thought their ability to play on special teams would give them the edge, but that's clearly not what is going to happen with him. So that would probably be the biggest surprise to me.
Do you think a guy like Okoronkwo is on the roster at this moment because the Eagles are looking to see who they could bring in as a young veteran into that pass rush?
I do. Yeah. I think that's the biggest reason. When you look at it, they don't really have that kind of presence. Even Ojulari and Uche, I don't know what their ages are, but Azeez is pretty young. Uche, I don't know how old he is. I'm guessing 27-ish. So yeah, it is a very young room, and you're going with Jalix Hunt and Nolan Smith, 2nd and 3rd year guys running the show after you've had veterans like Brandon Graham for 15 plus seasons, dictating the room. But to their benefit, they have the character that can withstand something like that. And I think that's another thing you mentioned, how Howie has pivoted in recent years. And I would say they started targeting a lot of team captains and people who have this type of leadership ability. They've made it a big thing forefront on their draft picks. And I think you're seeing that now with their ability to be able to go so young with Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, these youngsters leading, rooms where in the past they would have kept a lot older players around.
Yeah, I saw a tweet from Brandon Lee Gouton of Bleeding Green. The Eagles roster consists of 6 players entering their age 30 season or older. That's only 11.3% of the roster.
Wow.
put it in perspective, the Commanders have 23 on their 53-man roster entering their 30 season or older. That's 43.4%. So you look at it, Ojulari, he's 25, Uche a year older at 26. So Okoronkwo at 30, fifth-round pick by the Rams back in 2018. Yeah, he provides some veteran stability, I think. And I think the Eagles are just going with this young core. And in that press conference, I think Howie Roseman got a little miffed by one of the questions because he was kind of questioned, well, Ringo hasn't panned out the way you thought. So is it going to change your mindset in valuing who you have in-house? And, I mean, Roseman still likes Ringo. He said he's one of the best special teams players in the league, and people don't realize how important that is for this Eagles team. But I do think that Philadelphia also understands their ability to develop players. We've seen it, across the landscape. I mean, Quinyon Mitchell has been fantastic. Cooper is Cooper. They're hoping Makuba could kind of follow the footsteps of those two guys at safety. And, they got Jacorian Bennett, who I know is the third and final preseason game, but from all accounts and from what I saw, he looked pretty good and pretty comfortable. So I think they're going to give him that starting job, maybe not next Thursday. I wouldn't be surprised if you see a Dory Jackson named starting CB2 just because he provides a little bit of a better floor at this point. But I think that the Eagles just understand that they can run with these young guns. And also at the same time, they got to be smart with their money. And Roseman's probably one of the best GMs about it. They've got some big contracts coming up, down the pike that I don't think people are realizing. So a lot of it also has to do with some financial and roster flexibility.
I'm very curious to pick your thoughts about this. So, and keep me honest, it seems like this year they kept a lot of, and I know it's only the initial 53, but it seems like this year they kept a lot of defensive tackles. If my count is right, I think it's about 6 of them. You have Jalen Carter, Gabe Hall, Byron Young, Jordan Davis, Ty Robinson, Moro Jomo. It doesn't feel ordinary for the Eagles to do this. How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the reasoning is because they don't have the guys who can eat up 800 snaps. They don't have proven guys like that. A Jomo is going to have to take on double the snaps that he has in the past. Jordan Davis obviously doesn't play lots of snaps. So you're looking at heavy rotations. And Jalen Carter at times last year played more snaps. He was like over 90% in games. He played almost more than anyone else at times. So in order to keep him fresh, you're going to have to just rotate a lot. And I think they don't know what they have in some of these guys as far as week 8, week 9, week 10, after they've had 400 or 500 snaps under their belt. So that is the reason, and I believe that they went that heavy.
Yeah, I mean, I agree as well. I'm trying to pull up last year's initial roster to see what they kept at the D tackle position. But yeah, Dave nailed it on the head. I mean, they got to figure it out. They kept 6 defensive tackles last year. So,
they did have 6 in the initial.
I'm sorry.
I feel like they only had about a rotation of like 3 or 4 of them throughout the season.
Maybe well, this was from last year. It was Carter, Davis, Williams, Ojomo, gonna butcher his name, Thomas Booker, and Marlon Tuapalatu. Those island names are tough.
They're very tough.
But they kept 6. So
similar reason, because nobody had snaps.
Yeah. So I think they know what they're doing when it comes to this roster construction. So I think it makes sense. I think Ojomo is going to be a big piece, and they need him to be the big piece. And also you want to rotate some of those guys in. I mean, you could keep fresh legs in and get some subs in, get your big guys a couple of plays off where when you need them in crunch time, they're fresh. So I think that's just more so the reason as well, along with the points that David made.
All right. So then outside of that, offensive linemen, we have our regulars. They I think a surprise keep is Brett Toff, who I feel like it's been in and out of the roster for years. And I'm actually surprised that they're convinced he can actually do the job now. Do you feel like him staying is because Landon Dickerson is actually in jeopardy of missing week 1?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, he was the main guard taking that spot the last few days at camp. So, and I think it might be why they went heavy there in general, even with Keegan, who I was a little surprised with as well. I figured maybe one of them would make it, but definitely not both. I was more surprised that they put Miles Hitton at risk, if I'm being honest. So it must be a little more severe than any of us think, or at least they're a little more concerned about it than most of us were aware of.
Yeah, I agree. And the fact that Toth played the majority of that third and final preseason game, they needed to see that they needed to see what he could do. So I do think that they're probably banking that he's going to get the start come Thursday. And then the offensive line in general, I mean, they talk about, they love guys to be interchangeable. That's why they have a bunch of guys in there. That's why they brought Fred Johnson back. And, Howie Roseman was asked today, well, why didn't you just sign him instead of letting him go or trading him or whatever? And Howie's like, well, you got to realize from our perspective, like, it's not that we weren't trying to sign him, but we have 2 all-pro tackles. And Fred realized, hey, I have no avenue to start. So he thought he had a better opportunity elsewhere. It didn't work out. And they love what Johnson can do. He's shown that he can fill in at a championship caliber level. So, I think it's a very sneaky, underrated sign by Roseman and the Eagles. So I like this offensive line. I mean, what's not to like, really? I mean, they've been arguably the best starting 5 for the last few years. And, it helped pave the way for Saquon to have his historic season last year.
I want to go back to the wide receiver spot just because Johnny Wilson's out for the year. Are you guys surprised that they're going with only AJ, Devontae, John, Mechie, and Cooper? Especially being the fact that Mechie has barely seen the field with the Eagles. Dotson, we're hoping that he has a big bounce back season. But do you feel like they should have at least kept that extra wide receiver just in case?
I mean, I don't. I had them going with 5. I like the 5. I think they're very interchangeable at what they can do. I think you have 3 first-round draft picks there. I don't remember where Mechie was selected, but these are high-caliber athletes. Even Cooper, the fact he was UDFA. I mean, Corey just went through all of his numbers. I mean, he was unbelievable in college. I really like it. I think the concern, and Corey will probably want to address this, the bigger concern about the wide receiver is the punt returner, as what most of the fan base is more concerned about.
Your boy's really free. He's a free agent.
Huh?
I see your boy's a free agent.
Yeah. And you get, and they did a lot of roster pull-ups with that position last year, like with Covey bringing him up, who's, out there again. I kind of think that's, probably the route they'll go. And in a pinch, they can use Dotson. They can use Cooper if they have to, which I hope we don't see. Corey and I were talking about that before the show, but yeah, I think Corey might see it a little bit differently than me, but that would probably be the bigger reason to have a 6 wide receiver, more so than because you need somebody to back up 1 and 2.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, last year they kept 5, but 1 was Britton Covey. Looking at the stats last year, Cooper DeJean handled the majority of the punts, as we know. He had 21 of the 28 taken by the Eagles. 6 of them went to Covey, and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Is credited with the other one, according to NFL Reference. But yeah, I don't know. That's why I thought Ainias Smith may have been able to stick on this roster because, like I said, he was getting reps. They brought in Avery Williams. I know, Brian, you were pretty high on him earlier in the offseason, just excited about what he could potentially do. He had the most experience out of all of them, and he didn't have a good camp. He got cut. Jahan Dotson, I believe, did a little bit of returning in college when he was with Penn State, but hasn't done it with Washington. My biggest concern is just throwing somebody out there who's never done it. Now, people might be like, oh, well, how hard can it be? You just catch the football. No, you've got guys barreling down at you, especially on the punts. The kickoffs have become almost simplistic to the point where you can pretty much put anybody back there, but the punts are still very, very important, especially deep inside your own territory. We've seen our fair share of some shaky punt returns from the Eagles in the past. But I agree with David. Anybody but Cooper DeJean back there, please. He is already doing way too much. I mean, not that they play a lot of base, but he's at safety and base. He's going to be the nickel. Hell, we might even see him on the outside, depending on what they decide to do. And you just don't want one of your home run hitters to take unnecessary hits, because those returners are in the worst position possible. They're not seeing really who's coming down. They could kind of see a little bit, but you're focusing on making the catch. And we've seen some horrific injuries across the league on punt returns, and DeJean just doesn't need to be out there. Vic Fangio didn't want him out there last year, but understood they really had no choice, and he was pretty good at it. But yeah, I don't know who they're going to use this year. I would like to see like maybe a Will Shipley go back there. He's small. He kind of has that Darren Sproles vibe where you throw him back there and just see what he can do. But yeah, I don't really know what they're going to do at the punt return position. I thought Smith might have been able to make the roster, but clearly they don't view him as one. So we'll see. Again, Howie Roseman said we're not done. Obviously, they've got 24 hours and then the waiver wire hits. Expect him to probably pick up somebody that can. And I believe Michi also has some experience doing it, so maybe he's in the fold.
If you didn't notice, Corey feels very passionate about the punt return position. It's a very near and dear position to his heart. So
it's not. I just think it gets overlooked because
it's very difficult to catch that ball.
If they put somebody out there who's never done it, and it's only a 7-point game. Like I don't know about you guys. I don't think this is a cakewalk game on Thursday. I mean, Dallas is going to come in here and try and spoil this party that's about to happen at Lincoln Financial. They've got,
and we all know Jerry's going to sign Micah the day before. It's a big deal to take away all
they're going to be juiced up. So I'm just saying, I don't want to see it being a 21-17 game, and the Eagles need to put this one away, and they've got somebody who's never fielded a punt before muff a punt, and then the Cowboys go and score with a minute left, and they ruined the day. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, as long as not an offensive lineman back there, I think we'll be, somewhat suitable. But before we wrap up the show, it's going to be a short show just because I'm all banged up. The guys are tired as well. They all had long days. What's your prediction from here on out, from now to next Thursday? What move can you see Philadelphia making to actually make this a concrete roster going into this September 4th game?
I mean, they're definitely bringing a long snapper back. That's definitely happened. So yeah, some position is going to lose out there. I think it'll probably be one of the guards, one of the offensive linemen. They'll probably try to get down, probably a veteran like Toth, who can just go to the practice squad and they can pay without, risking him to lose. I would expect them still to be looking at edge. I think that's one of the biggest positions of need, in my opinion. I don't think a few of these guys outside of Smith and Hunt, Uche had flashes, but some of the others didn't really turn it on to the end of camp, and you kind of question what type of competition they're going against at that point when they're showing off like that. So to me, I still think edge rusher, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's still looking around for a tight end as well. But to me, edge rusher, they prioritize the trenches more than any other team in the league, so that would be mine.
Yeah, I agree with you on the edge, and I think you make a good point with the tight end. If Dallas Goedert goes down, this could be troublesome, not only because of the weapon he is passing, but I don't think people realize how good of a run blocker he is and what he does for this run game. The other backup tight ends they are nowhere near as good of a run blocker. So I think they're going to have to try and find another tight end that he may not be flashy, but he's going to be that sixth offensive lineman, so to speak, in run plays. But I agree with the edge. I think they need to get something on there as well. If it's a veteran that got cut, I mean, there's so many names that like I haven't even been able to comb through yet of every team of who got cut and what. So I agree there. I think they're going to be set. I don't know if they're going to bring another corner. They seem pretty confident with what they've got right now. I do think they could bring in another safety. I'm a little worried, and David, you might be able to talk me off this ledge. I'm a little worried about Makuba's size. And I think a lot of people are. He's not that big. I think he's.
Hey, Rodney McLeod wasn't that big either. He was a tiny guy, and he almost body slammed Brandon Cooks in retirement.
Right. I mean, I'm not saying that Makuba can't be a guy. I was at the preseason game where he had the pick six, the fumble recovery. The guy is a baller, absolutely. But I think they might want a little insurance policy there maybe as well. I know they got Tristan McCollum, but maybe they dabble in the safety market as well. So those are the three spots I think they might make a move.
I actually am looking forward to seeing Makuba ball out. I feel like he's gonna be a sneaky guy.
I agree. Oh, he was electric in that preseason game, which was the equivalent of watching paint dry, which is hard to say about any football game, but that's what it was against the Browns. I mean, we were in the press box and we're looking at each other like, what are we watching here? I mean, the offenses were brutal, although Gabriel was pretty solid moving the Browns down.
That's QB2 Gabriel. Make sure you respect his name.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Kenny, how about Kenny Pickett, by the way? Can we talk about Kenny Pickett going from Pittsburgh to Philly? You win a Super Bowl with your hometown team. Then you have to go to beautiful Cleveland. And then he gets out of Cleveland and goes to Las Vegas. I mean, that's pretty solid.
I think Joe Kim Noah said it best. Nobody ever vacations in Cleveland. So shout out to Kenny for getting out of there. But next week is the season kickoff. We'll be back on Tuesday at 7:30 to kind of go into a preview of Eagles Cowboys, and I'm pretty sure we'll be talking about the big Micah Parsons contract that they made a big whoop about all off season, even though they probably already have it signed in the back end.
It is interesting. Have you heard the comments? And you gotta take it with a grain of salt with Jerry Jones, but it doesn't sound good. Like this doesn't sound like this is just kind of he said. Like it seems to be pretty nasty right now. And
it sounds like wrestling. If I'm being honest, like wrestling promos. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Jones is definitely doing it to keep the Cowboys in the limelight right now. But if you see other people that have reported on it, they kind of say like, "Hey, like this isn't a show here. Like there's some serious disconnect." Fine by me. Hey, I don't need to see Micah on Thursday.
For real.
It is a little weird over there. It's one of those things where it's like, like when your mom always tells you, "Hey, you hear about your cousin? This is happening." It's like, no, I don't really care. Like it's the drama on that side of the family. You don't pay mind to at the end of the day. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if they signed Micah to a large deal the day before, the day of, whatever case may be. He suits up and possibly all these guys that hold out always end up getting injured in the first week or two, which is sad to say for them because they got to fight for these contracts. But I wouldn't be surprised with things like that falling apart. On a happy note, Eagles football is back.
Yes, it is.
We'll be covering you guys all season. This is a new crew: Corey, David, myself. You may see little sprinkles of Liam here. You may see little sprinkles of Zach in here. But we'll definitely be covering you guys and being much more active on a weekly basis. Morgan will be joining us once we get the Friday show kicked off, and when I get my feet underneath me. As you can see, I have boxes still moving in. Getting my life settled, but I appreciate you all for joining us today. Corey, David, I appreciate you guys for coming on today, and I can't wait for Thursday.
Absolutely. Looking forward to the season.
Sounds good. All right. Well, this is Flipping the Birds, and I appreciate you all for coming on today. Until next week, go Birds.
Flip.